Hello, hello, welcome. So, today we're diving deep with a man who has spent decades behind the scenes shaping the personal development industry, transforming the marketing industry. We have Kyle Wilson, not just a marketing expert, but the mastermind behind Jim Rohn, filling the seminars, selling millions of dollars in products, working with crazy names like Brian Tracy, Les Brown, Darren Hardy. And his core focus is mastering the art of influence long before social media was even a thing and going viral was something that people were even striving for. So he knows what lasts, what phase, what's actually going to work in the test of time with building a real brand. So we're going to go straight into the sauce. We're not going to give you the same, oh, tell us your story interview. Kyle, welcome. Super happy to have you.
Hey, my honor, Natalie. Good to be here.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So you've built massive email lists, millions of emails collected long before social media or even the internet. Tell me how you got started and how did you build that skill set?
Yeah, no, and by the way, I apologize. I've been fighting something off, so I got the frog in my throat. But, people say, wow, how'd you end up partnering with Jim Rohn? You must have been like class president. And I'm like, no, I was doing drugs and barely got through high school, definitely didn't go to college. And I'm not proud of that, but just a very different type of path, a very serendipitous path that led me to eventually getting in the seminar business. I built a small little business in a small town. I grew up in Vernon, Texas. And at age 26, really got the God whisper to sell everything and move to Dallas and start another business. And very serendipitously got in the seminar business. And I actually got really good at it. I had to make 100 cold calls a day to book myself to go speak at companies, go speak one, two, three times a day, get referrals, and sell tickets to an event. And after that, I went out on my own and I would go into a new city every 90 days: Chicago, Washington, D.C., LA, Dallas, although Dallas is home base, so that was easy, Miami. And I would hire two to three speakers for each event. And Jim Rohn was one of the guys I would hire: Jim Rohn, Brian Tracy, Ogmandino. And in 1993, Jim said, hey, Kyle, my business partner owes me $500,000 for the next event. Could you just pay me directly? And I was getting 2,500 people to an event. I said, Jim, I think you're the best speaker in the world. I'm a pretty good promoter. I would love the opportunity to get an exclusive to book you. And Jim was pretty hesitant. We hear about when Tony Robbins worked with him. Well, that company was Adventures and Achievement. And Jim will say, hey, he lost 800,000 in that business.
Wow.
So Jim, although the greatest philosopher of all time, as Darren Hardy will say on my Instagram page, he'll say, Kyle, you were the business guy. And so Jim and I did a handshake. And that first year, I took him from 20 speaking dates to 110, tripled his speaking fee. And now I'm taking him to all these new companies. And I started another company called Your Success Store. So, an additional to Jim Rohn International, which I was the founder of and actually the owner of, because I said, Jim, since your partnerships haven't gone great, let me just pay you off the top. I'll pay for everything and I'll pay you like a speakers bureau.
Really?
And then I'll go create products and pay you a royalty. So when I sold the companies, it was actually my company, built the million plus list. And so that's part of that story. But the other company was Your Success Story. And that's where I would take Brian Tracy, Les Brown. You see all the testimonials on my website. Well, these were relationships. We made a lot of money together. And from there, this is pre-internet. So when the internet came, as J. Conrad Livingston said, marketing is marketing is marketing. So it doesn't matter if it's classified ads in the 30s, TV in the 40s, radio, eventually infomercials, then the internet, of course, now social media. The principles don't change. And we're going to talk about that, tactics and principles. And so I went on to build a million plus email list once the internet came around. And then in 2007, I actually sold all the companies and then came back out of retirement in 2014, started a mastermind, published books, And of course, you've come and you spoke at my mastermind, and that was awesome.
Great community,
Yeah.
definitely a great community. What I find very interesting is you were one of the first people who did a growth partnership in the marketing space. Growth partnership is you partner up with somebody who you see has that talent, but maybe doesn't have that business savvy. How were you able to identify that talent within somebody else? And what do you think your unique skill set was that complemented that?
That's a really great question because there's a lot of talent. So talent's not what I'm looking for first. It's trust.
Interesting.
So philosophy, Jim Rohn talks about philosophy. And so I became a student of what Jim taught. Jim impacted my life more than anyone else. And Jim was a very principle based teacher. So I had a lot of opportunities to partner up. And I think the great Zig Ziglar said something that I caught the past 20 something years ago. He said, never do a good deal with a bad guy. And so for me, I turned down a ton of opportunities, but I really focused, can I do a handshake with this person? And Jim and I had a handshake for 10 years. And finally, I'm like, Jim, I have to put this on paper because, I'm not just worried about you, I'm worried about me. If something happened to me, what would the company do? And so I wanted to empower my employees. We built such an amazing community culture in the company that I felt if something happened to me, they could keep running it. Jim was the message, I was the marketing piece to it. So, yeah, there has to be that because I did do other deals with other speakers, but it didn't have the legs because it wasn't the perfect connection. If they were their own marketer as well, yes, they wanted to have me promote them, but I couldn't benefit to the degree I could with Jim because everything I did with Jim, I got all the outgoing benefit because it's all about cross pollinating. I could talk about the wheel where you get someone on the wheel and you take them around all the different spokes. Well, if you don't own all the different spokes, you can't fully benefit.
Hmm.
So that's where I did create some other relationships similar to Jim. I also became 100% exclusive with Dennis Waitley, Ron White, Chris Widener, and some others. But I had to be able to bring them in, say, I have a whole team. We have all these different assets we can bring to you. We're already killing it with emails, list, and speakers bureau, the whole thing. And I also get the benefit from all the different things you're doing. And we helped launch them on a lot of different levels, including publishing books and coaching programs. And more than anything, just their whole speaking business.
The info product business, the first thing that comes to mind is right now, since 2016, guys like Ty Lopez have come out and promoted the concept of a social media marketing agency, right? So there's thousands of agencies now more than ever. And a lot of businesses have been burned with working with marketing agencies. What would you tell those businesses to look for if they're looking to hire somebody who has expertise in marketing and they want to gain influence, but they want to do it the right way?
Yeah, two of my really good friends, one of my best friends, Darren Hardy, but another one's John Asserout. And both those have a similar thing in this. And I would say Robin Sharma as well. And I coached Darren and Robin. All three of those have three things they do. Number one is they create content. Number two, they deliver content. So you got to create it, then you got to figure out how you're going to deliver it. But then number three is marketing. And all three of those are the architect of their own marketing. So that doesn't mean they're doing the sausage making. That doesn't mean they're doing any of it, but they are the architect. And so I tell everyone, my inner circle members, you have to own the marketing. That doesn't mean you have to do it, but you're not going to learn anything if you're not involved in it. You know, to me, marketing just pivots. It's everything's a pivot. If I'm going to go do an event in a city, I have a plan, but my plan's going to shift every day based on the results I get.
Yep. It's like science, you're
Yeah.
experimenting.
Yeah. Everything's a pivot and you never know who you're going to connect with. And so you're constantly fluidly moving. Well, if the people in charge of your marketing aren't taking the data that they're given and constantly pivoting, and so I would say you have to be connected to the marketing arm. Don't just think, okay, they're going to go do that and I don't have to think about it. Just make sure you're connected to it. There are definitely people smarter than you, better than you, that this is all they do. So all that's good as long as you don't think it's going to happen without you. Because if it does, and I have so many examples of this, but sometimes, when the owner or the talent is disconnected from all the other pieces, it all looks like it's going good, and you just don't even know. Your people don't even know. Like, they don't even know what they don't know. And
Right.
maybe the best example for me is when I sold my companies, and everything. We just had such an amazing culture and I mean, we were doing so much business, Natalie. I can't even tell you the amount of this 8-figure business with a zero marketing budget, because
You're a
emails.
marketing company with no marketing budget.
Yeah, and you create a CD series for $5 and you sell it for 60. It was a very good business, and I'm paying a 15% royalty. And we had profit sharing. We just had a great company. But when I sell the company, the people that buy they're smarter than you. So they think, right? And so they start changing everything. And my customers, and I had over 1,000 affiliates. And so even like Tom Ziegler, Jeffrey Gitomer, they were all affiliates too. I was selling all their stuff. And the feedback kept coming back to me about whether it's shipping or customer service. And yet you would go ask the guys that had bought the company, and everything's A plus, because it was a disconnect between
Hmm.
reality and the people that were collecting data. Where on my end, here I'm running a company, but I looked at every order that came in. I wanted to see where it came from, who's behind it. I could constantly connect the dots. When I talk about marketing, one of the key things is connecting the dots. It's not about manipulation. It's not about being clever. It's just connecting the dots between what you offer, knowing who your customer is, knowing why they buy, knowing who your competition is. And we overcomplicate it. It's pretty simple. But you have to be in the trenches. You
You
can't.
have to be in the trenches. I agree. And I think that right now, especially in this day and age, people are looking for the easy way out or the shortcut. Social media makes it seem like there's shortcuts, but I 100% agree with you. The success of your marketing team is going to be determined on how involved you are in it as a
Yes.
founder or as a face of the brand. Especially with social media in this day and age, you have to get your message and share your authenticity. And yeah, your team can use AI or use all of these different tools to help spread your message and get you more exposure. But it all starts with you. If you don't have confidence, you're not grounded in your business and your message, it doesn't matter if you hire someone like yourself, it's just not going to work, no matter how many other people you work with. I'm glad we
And,
talked about that before. We definitely align with that for sure.
and equally, you won't learn anything. It's like
Yep.
learning to play the guitar. How about if someone said, okay, you don't really have to learn to play the guitar. Someone else will play it for you. You're not actually learning. But when you are connected, if someone, they don't have to do the sausage making, right? But if they're constantly learning, like everything I ever did, I didn't know anything about. I didn't know how to book meetings. I didn't know how to go give a presentation. I didn't know how to sell tickets. I didn't know how to put on events. I didn't know how to publish books. I didn't know how to create info products. I didn't even know how to type when the internet came around.
I can't even
I
imagine.
have to learn to get on. I had to learn to use a computer, and guess who else didn't know how to type? Darren Hardy. We're both sitting there going, "Oh, is this thing really going to
Click,
happen?
click,
Okay, I
click.
guess we got to figure it out." But we learn by doing, and so same thing. When I say Darren, Robin, John are architects of their marketing, that's what I mean. Their heads not in the sand, hoping someone else is doing it. And the data is the feedback in which you learn, and you're constantly learning. So you're learning with your team. You're learning with your marketing team.
You have to earn the right to delegate, but you still have to lead the ship.
Yes.
I love it. So, you've seen three massive marketing shifts in your life so far. Number one was the rise of the internet. Number two, the rise of social media. And what's happening right now is the rise of AI. But the principles still stay the same. Could you talk to me a bit more about what those are?
Yeah, for sure. I always say uh, the tactical side of business or of marketing shifts with technology. So almost everything we're all doing is technology based, right? Social media, AI, events, podcasts, emails, that's all the tactical side. The principle based side never changes. How I filled a room in 1993 is the same way I would do it this year. And so, number one, the number one for me principle is having a great product. You know, a product that people will refer, people will get behind. Warm traffic so much better than cold traffic. I don't want to be churning through people all the time and constantly having to start over. So having a great product, having great services, being strategic. That's a principle. So not just doing one-offs. A lot of people go do a one-off and they're always starting over. And so when I talk about the wheel, there's 5 principles to every spoke that you have on your wheel. And one of them is that you don't want to do one-offs. You want it to be part of your core business. And so everything's synergistic. Being consistent, that would be a principle. Having a great culture, that's a principle. I heard, I think it's Rory Vaden said that a transformed life is the best marketing you can have. So things like
Yes.
and so when you can have a great product and a great culture and you're relational. So relational is being principle based, versus being transactional. And so those are all principles that you'll see the top companies in every arena. And this includes sports. You'll see the best sports franchises have these same principles. They're very focused on relationships, culture, putting the best product out in the marketplace.
Can you think of a major company that just had a flop with their marketing because maybe they were too transactional or just weren't following the basic principles?
What comes to mind for me is so many of the big companies that we have to use, whether it's your utility company or I'm not saying PayPal specifically, but Kajabi, whoever it is, all the different vendors we have that they spend so much money trying to get you in the door. And then when it's and I don't want to, so I mean, Zoom, maybe, like when I'm
Yeah.
thinking of you have a great product and then all of a sudden the customer service keeps getting worse and trying to get what you want in the best way gets worse. I refer AWeber all the time, and only because you can actually get on a phone call with them and talk to them. That's worth something for a new user. I've been doing email for, wow, 25 years, email marketing, and I still have questions. I still just know this much of all there is to know. So for a newbie to have to go through all the other, learning things they have to learn. So yeah, I would say the majority of companies I think suffer. And then on the flip side, you have Costco and Apple and all the winners, Nordstroms, that know how to create great products and give great service.
Have you seen this is
And by the
very
way, Amazon for sure.
Amazon for sure. Have you seen the Gen Z marketing of Duolingo?
I have it.
They are hilarious, and they have a semi-great product. It's great for people who are looking to learn a language. Now they have a course to be able to teach you how to learn music as well. But their marketing is very relational, and they've built such a strong community, specifically with their Gen Z audience. Right now, they're doing a campaign where they're killing their mascot. So the mascot was a giant owl that would go out, do these memes, follow the trends. They showed up to Taylor Swift's concert and gave away a bunch of different things. But now they're killing the mascot and they're doing a giant rebrand. And everybody on the internet is talking about it. And I think they are the perfect example of just keeping it simple, not trying to pretend that they're somebody that they're not, and just going all in with these marketing campaigns and listening to their audience 24/7. Something happens at the Super Bowl, they're talking about it an hour later. It's insane how fast that they move. So, I want to pivot and get your perspective on some blind spots that some business owners or marketers might be having in their business.
I think definitely being out of touch with their customer, like not really having, again, yeah, I sold my company. The first thing they wanted was a dashboard. Like they didn't want to see orders. They just wanted to see numbers, data. And I get
Really?
analytics, I get data, I get all that, but that doesn't tell the story. It's just like a sportscaster, that didn't watch the game, but they're acting like they watched the game. Oh yeah, so and so had 3 interceptions. Da 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 da. No, I watched the game. The receiver dropped the first one that fell in the other guy's hands. The receiver slipped down on the second one. And so they're missing the story behind the story. And I think it's because, and a lot of times that's a culture problem because the people at the very top aren't really wanting to know either. And then you can look at a Starbucks and look at companies like that that are very much in the trenches. Again, it's easy to spot.
You can definitely tell with the vibe of their audience and how the audience is responding on how connected they really are.
Yes. So I think culture is a big one, and culture starts at the top and really caring about your customer. And this all gets back to philosophy. I know I'm going to win if I care about people. It's not just trying to be a good person. It's not just, it's also, it's the smart way to live life. When you think big, when you have a big mindset and you're a giver and you want to create the best stuff out there and be generous with it, in my opinion, that's when you're going to win anyway. So I think a lot of times people are coming from maybe a win-lose type mentality. And I think that's really uneducated at the end of the day.
It sounds like the biggest blind spot is not having core values and sticking to them.
Yeah, true, true.
A lot of people don't have that
You know
these
what?
days.
And sometimes it's because they have role models that they think are succeeding. And I'm not going to name
Mm,
names, but they can say, well, this person out there, I watch them churn through people, but they're doing great. But there's usually a story behind the story. And sometimes the person that they think is getting all the results with a marketing type thing I wouldn't endorse, two things are going on. Maybe they're not being near as successful as you think they are. But secondly, how much better would they be if they weren't doing that? How much more successful would they be if they didn't have those negative things attached?
how do you identify that, right? It's hard to find role models or mentors that you can trust because it's easy to manipulate the perception of who you are. How do you identify that as somebody who's looking for that kind of
Yes.
guidance?
Jim Rohn had the best advice. He said, be a student, not a follower. Make sure everything you do is the product of your own conclusion. Take advice, but not orders. And what that meant to me,
That's
hearing
good.
that at age 28, um, was take it all in, but I don't have to follow it all. So I can sit at a Tony Robbins seminar or at a Joel Osteen sermon or read the book Think and Grow Rich or whatever it is. And take what I want to take, but don't have to take it all. And so I think you can look at some of the people out in the marketplace and discern, I like this and I don't like that. But just because you don't like certain things of it doesn't mean you can't learn from the rest. So you don't
You,
have to follow anyone totally.
yeah.
And if someone wants you to follow them totally, be careful. That's called a cult.
Ooh, very, very culty. I'm curious, how old were you whenever you got started marketing in general?
Yeah. Well, so at age 19, I was shooting up drugs, the whole thing. Maybe I didn't say that part earlier, but yeah, I was not in a good place. And I had a spiritual relation. I had a spiritual thing happen and changed my life. And within a year, I started a detail shop, believe it or not. But the marketer started coming out of me, and I then had a service station. It's a small town, and within 3 years, I have the biggest station in town. I'm on the highway. We're open 24/7. I have 10 employees. Called it America Station. Wilson's Texaco, and so even then, I think some of the principles I still stand by today. I was doing then. The wheel. We had
It
the
so full circle. You started in a car shop, and
yeah.
that's crazy.
We had the school bus contract. We were all these different spokes on the wheel that you get someone in for this, and you take them around by giving good service and being fair. I never was the most expensive. Today, I'm not the most expensive. I don't want to churn through people. Like with my inner circle, I still have so many founding members going back to
I
2015.
met a few of them. 10 years.
Yeah, what
Insane.
that creates a culture. It creates relationships. And so, could I charge more? Of course. But do I want to, be constantly trying to resell? No, I am still kind of semi-retired. And so it's not just that I don't want to work that hard. It's that I do like when the fish jump in the boat. I always call it fishing versus hunting.
Mhm.
I, I did have to hunt at one time. I've had the good fortune of not having to go hunt in a long time. And I think that is the difference between sales and marketing. Sales is going out, trying to close a deal. Marketing is attraction. Marketing is about fishing, and it's putting the right stuff out to the right audience. And it doesn't matter to me who says yes. It matters that they can use what I'm selling and that they're a good fit, for me, and I'm a good fit for them. And so to do that, you have to have the right products, you have to have the right audience, you have to know how to reach them, you have to know how to build the list. When I talk about the wheel, the key is how to get more people on the wheel to take them around. And that's the big dilemma I had to solve in 1993. And I had a God download, and it was about what made Jim special and how could I take his message to the masses. And it was he was such a wordsmith. So I came up with this idea for a quote book that had a to and a from, and people would buy 10, 100, 1,000 at a time and pass them out. Of course, it had our catalog and how they could reach us. And it actually really worked incredibly well. Ended up selling 6 million of those, and ended up doing them for Tom Ziegler, or Zig Ziglar at the time, and Brian Tracy and Mark Victor Hansen, and moved 2 million of those as well. But it was just the perfect tool for Jim Rohn, and his advocates loved him. So here's a good quote: "You have to empower your advocates." So a lot of times people want people to promote them, but they don't empower them. They don't give them any tools. And so I gave them a tool that they could go buy inexpensively, $1 each, if they bought 10, to go give out the quote books. And Natalie always say, like, here's one. Always say, no one said, "Hey, take this." They said, "Hey, have you ever heard of this guy, Jim Rohn?
Yep.
This guy changed my life. And look at this quote: learn to be happy with what you have while you pursue all that you want." And then they'd turn to another page. And then maybe they would even turn to the back and say, "You see all these products? That Seasons of Life book, I bought 50 at Christmas and gave away. Hey, really enjoy this." And then you know what would happen next? Our phone would ring. And we would always ask, this is pre-internet, "How'd you get our number?" And someone would say, "Someone gave me a quote book." That was 70% of it.
Wow. You know what's
We
fun?
empowered our advocates. We
I
made it
love that.
easy for them to go tell the story.
You gave me one of those, and a fun thing that I do is I'll carry it around. Let's say I'm with a friend, and I'll ask them, "Hey, say a number 1 through 20 or 1 through 30. Look at the page number, and I'll open that page number, and I'll read the quote out loud to them. And it's almost always exactly what they needed to hear, and it's a great conversation starter. I need to buy a pack of those so I can just start giving away, because it's such a great way to, like you said, just empower your advocates, but also just leave a lasting impression on
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I'm very curious on how you identify a God download. How did you know it was something that you were moved to act upon?
I've had several, but let's say I've had a half dozen that were they're instantaneous. But this idea just comes through and you catch it. And then for me, it's like you get wrapped in a bubble and you almost become like me. Getting in the seminar business made no sense. I hated speaking in front of people. I had no skills. It just made no sense. But I knew I had to do it. And that all happened because I was like, sell my house and move to Dallas. Well, what were you going to do? I had no idea. That was one of the God downloads. And then uh, this quote book for Jim was another one. And starting the Jim Rohn Easing in 1999, I remember calling one of my best friends, telling him the whole idea. And he's like, "I don't get it." I'm like, "I do get it." And so, sorry I wasted your time. I'm going to go get to work. know, each one of those were 8-figure ideas at the end of the day. And I've had others, some stronger, but there are some that are just, I did three-day water fasts this summer, and I only say it because it was really life changing. So I'm
Very spiritual.
out there. Yeah, and one of them, my last one in August, was sell my house, and so it's okay. And I had equity in the house. I had a nice profit if I sold it. And who knew there was an election coming up? Like, I didn't know what was going to go on. And I'd been there a while and I ended up selling it. And it was a downsize because I needed to downsize. I had way too big of a place and ended up moving to somewhere where now I'm 4 minutes away from the best place where I go every day to work out.
Lifetime.
Lifetime
Quick
website.
plug, sponsor us.
Yeah, I'm playing pickleball every day, and my podcast co-host Chris Gronkowski is just down the street, and I've met so many people, and I would say I've met more people that know my world in a month there than I met in 8 years in my last place.
Wow.
And that's not the only reason I'm glad I moved. There were a lot of reasons, but when that kind of came through, I've learned to honor it, but Jim Rohn said, quoting the Bible, he said, if you search, you'll find, but rarely does a good idea interrupt you. You have to go searching. And so I will say I journal pretty much every day. I try and meditate, try and get quiet. I try and listen. And that's not a prerequisite for a God download. Like I can't say they just happen when they happen,
Mhm.
but you want to at least create as much space as possible, I think, to be open to it. And I think my wiring in my past life was I would grind it out. I'm a hard worker and I was very disciplined, very focused, very type A. And people that know me now just can't imagine when I
I
tell them
can't imagine it.
you
You're
can't.
so free flowing.
And I've had people that know me from back then that say, "Oh yeah, no, Kyle was the worst."
I saw a picture of you back then that I've never seen. I was like, I could see that guy just being just crazy shark, going after anything that comes in front of him. I could totally see that.
But it's like if you're putting on a big event, and you have first you have to fill the room. And I'm talking financially fill the room. You have to sell 2,000 tickets. And then you have to put on the event. And then you have to have the right content for the event. Then you have to execute the event. And then you want to sell a ton of product. And then you want to film it, all that. Yeah, I mean, you're laser focused. And might have a short fuse, and that was me. So I do think, selling my companies, I got to reset. And it was, I definitely had to release the ego because it was a big part of my identity. I was in many ways at the top of the mountain of my world. And to walk away from that it wasn't hard at the time, but in retrospect, I'm proud I did it. But that did help me reset a new life. And I've had some friends from those days challenge me of why I'm not trying to go kick ass again. And I'm like, well, I've already done that. Why would I want to do that? I've not ever been the healthiest version of myself. That's my goal now. I've not ever the happiest version of myself. And that's my goal now. Why would I go try and recreate something I've already done? And I still haven't got to these other things that are probably far more important.
Different mountains to climb.
They are more important. So it's all part of the evolution. We all get to keep growing. I've just been blessed to have so many amazing mentors show up in my life.
And right now, would you say your biggest focus is your health and your spiritual well being?
Yeah, definitely my health and definitely my spiritual well-being and, those closest to me in my life, but also very open to all of it, very open to, you know, travel and just learning new things. Like you helped me the other day on AI, right? So I love to learn. I want to grow. So yeah, all of it, honestly.
I love it. So let me ask you this. If you were to theoretically start over from scratch today, no list, no connections, how would you build your brand and audience in 2025?
Well, social media for sure. I mean, and I even did that in 2014 when I decided to come back. I told people, listen, the fastest, quickest way is social because you can reach anyone in the world. And guess what? They can reach you. Jeffrey Gitomer, do you know who that is?
I don't.
Okay, so he wrote the number one sales book of all time, The Little Red Book of Selling.
I've heard of that.
And Jeffrey's iconic, and I've known him since 93. He's spoken at all my events. He's a really good friend. And he came to my Philly inner circle, and he's from Philly. So he's even sent me a text this morning bragging about the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. I have a Philly inner circle in addition to Dallas and LA. And he had the best line. He said, Kyle, where do you live? I'm like, well, Jeffrey, you know where I live. I'm in Texas. He goes, no, 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 no. You're going to give everyone your address? He goes, no, where do you live, dude? He said, here's where you live. You live on your website and you live on your social channels. And it was a wake up call because my website was half assed. My social channels were half assed. And I'm like, 100%. You know, people, it's not just who we can find, it's who can find us. So you want to put your best foot forward. And every day, you know, I'm having people find me. I'm the channel I'm the least involved on is LinkedIn. And yet probably a dozen people every week get added to my email list. I'm much more focused on Instagram, and I just added to TikTok, and it's actually doing really well for me.
There
But
you go.
and I always say pick one at a time. Like if someone's not doing any social channels, just find one and then repurpose it on a couple of others, right? But go find the one that you enjoy the most. And for me, that's been Instagram. And I have a whole list of reasons why that's Instagram.
I agree. You know, whichever platform feels most natural to you and has the least resistance for you to show up is going to create natural consistency. So you might as well just focus all in on that one and then just repurpose your content across any other of the different platforms. In terms of building your list, is there anything specific that you would recommend to somebody who has no list right now to go ahead and do? Maybe 3 steps or something?
Yeah. So I have like two parts to that. Part one is the three things to build a list because I've had people that you would know who they are. Uh, and I'll name drop. So Ron White, the US memory champion, who I'm doing memory and marketing with, and you'll be speaking about AI at that event. So I was Ron's agent for years. We've known each other for 25 years. And after I sold my companies, he went out on his own and he would be on Martha Stewart. He would be on all these big shows. I'm like, Ron, how many people did you get added to your list? He goes, I always forget about that will thing. I always forget about that. And so, and I knew people that had sold 1 million books that had no email list. And so I was all about the email list. I was like the dots connected 100% for me on build a list, but not for everyone. So I said, number one, you have to have the intention. Have the intention you're going to build a list. Number two, you have to have the methodology. So it's like, okay, for me, it's Aweber. And then number three, you have to then have a system that you're going to get people at it. And so now I'll talk about that. And by the way, if you don't have a list, but you want a list and you have a bunch of business cards, you can put them in an Excel spreadsheet and don't do Aweber yet. You want to get it cleaned before you take it to Aweber, but load it to MailChimp and send it a couple of times where you get all the unsubscribes and all the complaints out of the way and all the undeliverables, and then eventually take it to Aweber. And I'm a proponent on have multiple lists because you can exclude people. So for example, I sent an email to my list yesterday about memory and marketing, but I excluded all the people who have already signed up. You can't really do that in MailChimp, but you can do it in Aweber. But back to building the list. So once you have it figured out you're going to do it, and you have the methodology, here's like maybe 4 or 5 things to go build a list. Number one is attend industry events, meet people. I don't carry business cards. If I met you at an industry event, you said, what do you do? I might say, you know, based on I've met you, you're a marketer. I might even start with real estate and say, well, I have a lot of investors, part of my mastermind. But I'm probably going to say, have you ever heard of Jim Rohn? If you say no, I'm like, okay, well, have you ever heard of Mark Victor, Chicken Soup for the Soul? Because I did Chicken Soup for the Entrepreneur Soul. Or if you're from Texas, you ever heard of Zig Ziglar? You know, I'm going to find you're into
A
music.
connection point. Yep.
The connection point. And then I'll tell them about a book maybe that, or they're Phil played all day at one of my inner circles. From there, I'm going to create a connection, but somewhere in there, I'm going to say, would you like me to send you a copy of that book, the digital version? And 9 times out of 10, really 19 out of 20, they're going to say yes. They'll either give me a business card or I'm going to handle my phone with the notes section open. I'm going to say, type in your name and your email. Then when they hand it back, I might make some notes. Natalie from Dallas loves Jim Rohn, or, you know, badass marketer. I've called you an assassin before, you know, an assassin. She's going to go get them.
Saw that Aries in my chart.
Exactly, exactly. I'm gonna make some notes. So anytime I'm at an event, I'm going to come back with a list of people and business cards. Now, guess what? I'm not going to try and sell them. I'm really not. I'm just going to put them on my wheel, give them great content. And occasionally in my mass marketing, it'll say, I've got an event coming up or whatever. And that's the difference between a funnel and the wheel. The wheel doesn't have an agenda. It's just value, 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 and occasionally something to say yes to. Going on podcast is a great way. Like every time I'm on a podcast, my most successful is 800 people off a podcast, the Brian Buffini podcast.
Wow.
And there's a whole methodology behind that. Obviously, speaking from the stage, again, I had 600 people at a, I believe, conference sign up to my email list. And I also sold out a product because somewhere in the middle, I talk about stories from a book I'd done. And I'm going to talk about this in a minute, lessons from thought leaders. But I'll take a book like that and I'll tell 2 or 3 stories from it. And then I'll list all the people in it. Hey, would you like a free digital copy? And it's up on the screen. Send an email. But then at the end of the talk, I'll bring up product they can buy and I'll be around. I'll sign it. And so I'm accomplishing both. You can do ads, but part of the wheel, there's 3 spokes on a wheel. Excuse me. There's 3 things a spoke represents. It represents a product or service. It represents customer acquisition, which would be like an ad, direct mail, ad on the radio, or it's both. And those are my favorite. My favorite are products that are also customer acquisition. So when you do an event, that's a product that's also customer acquisition. So you're running ads to get someone to buy a product, but now they're on the wheel. And so, yeah, you can go create something, and events are a great way to do it that will help you target your perfect audience, your perfect avatar, and pay for it. You don't, if you're in the beginning, you don't have to make money, and you probably won't, as long as you can build a list. And you and I both know events are about the back end anyway. So I'm going to add one more thing. And I would say the biggest mistake people make when they're trying to do what I just described is trying to monetize it too quick. Just like
Yes.
a podcast. I've had a podcast for many years. My goal is still not to monetize it as much as bring value and attract people. And of course, you can promote your own things, but yeah, I think they've been told falsely that they can just go straight to making money instead of creating influence. And that applies in the speaking world, the product world, podcast world.
In even the social media world, you have to post. If you've never posted anything in your life and you're starting a brand new account, I promise you, if you take 90 days to just provide value and not sell anything, but obviously talk about your service and what you do and how you can help people, once you come and do your first launch or, open the doors to clients, there's going to be a wave coming in because it's, I believe, the reciprocity effect. You give, 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 then people have almost a feeling to where they need to give you back something now, or now it's their turn to, get into the wheel,
Love it.
right?
Would you like me to share how to test an offer?
Yes, please.
Okay. These are my own little things I've discovered over the years. And I now taught this to a lot of people who are going to go launch a product or launch an event. And so, and I still do this. I do it to this day. So I did a big
It's one of
Brian,
your core principles, right?
it is. I did a big Brian Tracy 20-year anniversary event. And even then, like I'm never overconfident. I'm always going to test. And so the first thing is I want to create an irresistible offer. And so back to people with that first product, they don't make it irresistible. They're, well, what's that worth? What's worth $500? Okay, I'll go
Well, that'd be nice.
100. No, it has to be an irresistible offer first to a warm audience. So for me, I create the most irresistible offer and then offer it only to my inner circle. And so they get a shot at it before anyone else. And there has to be a deadline. So it's not like, okay, it's going to be like, it's a Tuesday. Guys, I'm going to launch this on Friday to my whole list. But you have till Friday. Or maybe I'm going to launch it next Tuesday. You have till Friday. And then there has to be a sense of urgency. So I love doing things like the first 7. I remember launching, it was like this VIP program. And this is 7 years ago. And I was kind of new back and coming back out. And so it was a 5K product, but just saying for the first 5 that sign up, and I forget what I even gave them, but people just started hitting the buy button. But do you know if I wouldn't have had the first 5 or first 7?
People would take their time. Oh, there's limitless space.
And then Jim Rohn, when I would sell tickets for when I was out speaking one-on-one, so this is back in '93, I learned my close was, by the way, write this down. Jim Rohn teaches LODI, the law of diminishing intent. And so no matter how much you think you're going to want to buy this, the reality is when you leave here and I leave here, you'll forget about me and I got other things to do. So, let me give you massive incentive to make decision today. So in the email or in the promo, you want to give your warm list irresistible offer with the deadline, but then some special incentive. And then it even also helps if there is scarcity. So there's a limited amount of maybe, seats or VIP. Now, here's the key. If your inner circle, if your warmest audience doesn't buy it,
The
it's not
cool people won't care.
going off. And I
Yep.
have I have had big stakes on the line that I will not sign the contract till I've done exactly what I've said. And then I coach people on that. And when they didn't get the results, and then I've even had people, it's on their 3rd year. So they hit a home run on their 1st year. They hit a home run on their 2nd year. They didn't call me on their 3rd year. They're on their 3rd year. They're like, Kyle, what's going wrong? And I'm like, Will, did you do the thing? And like, no, I started at the high price. I went out to my list at the high price. And here's the problem, especially with events. You have to know 8 weeks out, especially if there's a hotel, right? So there's a hotel involved. 8 weeks out, they're wanting how many rooms are you going to reserve, the whole thing. And you can't go by people are going to buy 2 weeks out. You have to know
Yeah,
8 weeks
stress. Your cortisol levels are going to be high.
And it was easier back in the day where you're doing personal meetings, right?
Right.
It's an infomercial basically. But if you're doing it off social, if you're doing it off an email list, there has to be massive incentive. So to me, it's all a bit of a science.
It is. I agree.
But the message is if you're going out with a new product, test it really low to a warm audience. And if they say yes, be glad that, you have like you just rewarded your best supporters at the best price. And then you can take it to a broader audience. Or you
Got
can
it.
call it off if they don't buy.
So, to test out a new offer, you have to make it irresistible, create scarcity, create a deadline, pitch it to your warmest audience at the lowest price, and that's how you make a decision if you're going to go wide market.
Yes, it has to be irresistible.
Perfect. That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing. And I think that people who might even have a small email list, you haven't sold any products yet, your email list would still be considered your warm audience.
Yeah. And then I bring up threats. So my threats are after, next Tuesday, I'm going to take it to my social media list. I'm going to add it to my affiliates. I actually have some affiliates, locked in.
Hmm.
So it's all true, and so for me, it's my inner circle first, broader email list second. And this applies on everything. It applies on even VIP seating. And I've even had VIP seating 1, VIP seating 2, and that's for a big event, right? And you just have to be able to keep playing cards. And what you don't want to do is just give the whole kitchen sink away that you have no cards left. So you have to have plenty of room to keep moving. So if you're having a lot of speakers, don't announce them all. Always be able to keep bringing more.
Always
Yeah,
have something in your
yeah,
deck.
yeah, exactly.
I love that. I love that because it also makes marketing fun. Like you said, whoever is the face or the brain or the person leading the event needs to be involved with the data. So this is a very fun way to actually interact with your audience, get responses, and optimize it to not obviously make a lot of money, but also get them super excited and amped up and share that culture with them to get them into the door.
Yes. And on that note, it's always going to be the back end. So it's never the product or the event. It's the back end to the product and the back end to the event. Because it's hard to start at a high end if you hadn't built the audience yet.
Mhm. Yep, that's true. Everybody's talking about high ticket products, but something low, something easy to get people into the door, because the likelihood of someone investing more into you to learn about a specific thing, if they've already spent money, is high likelihood. If someone's already spent money with you, they're probably going to spend money with you again.
So yeah, just to play off that, a lot of people are looking at what Tony Robbins does, or you can't do that. You're not Tony. You don't have Tony.
Completely different level. Yeah.
Look at where you are plus one.
Hmm.
Who is doing what you want to do just one step ahead of you and see what they're doing. But you can't look at Mel Robbins or Tony Robbins or Maria
Hmm.
Forleo, who have millions of people, millions of followers. And even you can't look at their websites either. Like they don't have to overly share their social proof. When you're super famous, you can be super humble. If no one knows who you are, you have to shout a little bit louder what you've accomplished. So always take a person a step above you that you admire, that you think's doing it right, and look at their website, look at their social, look at their product pricing.
I agree, and I think the timing is very important. For instance, people always like to come to me and talk about how Gary Vee and Grant Cardone are doing these amazing things, and they want to follow the exact same blueprint, but it's not 2015 anymore. What worked for them starting out isn't going to work for you today with zero audience or zero email list. Look at what your environment is, look at the people who are growing in this environment, and follow their blueprint. And then you can look at your long-term vision and adjust accordingly as needed.
Yes.
I like to pivot and talk a little bit more about your inner circle. I was able to go and speak to your inner circle. I met people who've been in there for 10 years, 5 years. It was mind boggling to see how they were so invested in everything that you've done for them and the value you provide. You could have retired and lived on a beach in, Thailand or wherever, but you decided to build a community. Why was that?
Yeah, it was 2013, and I went on a ski trip with Darren Hardy and John Assaraf and Eric Berman, who runs Brian Tracy, and Stephen Cox, who built Take Lessons, Get Lessons, and sold it. And so they were all part of a San Diego mastermind. And Darren invited me, but I've known John Assaraf since '97. And John said, yeah, I'll let Kyle come. But it was just those four part of a mastermind in me. And so they're all San Diego. I'm Dallas. We go skiing, Telluride at John's place. And I thought we were going to talk esoterical stuff like, God, I was retired and they were talking business and they were talking marketing. These are four marketing guys. And I got my appetite back. I got the itch. And I said, guys, I'm retired, but maybe I should start coming to San Diego to your mastermind. And they said, you should just start your own in Dallas. And I think I made the decision then, Natalie. It wasn't going to be about a business move as much as I wanted to be around amazing people. And so I started it with 12 people, and Ron White, the U.S. memory champion, founding member, Nui Scruggs, 15-time Emmy winner now, and some amazing entrepreneurs. And I started with 12 people in Dallas and 12 in LA. I don't know why I decided to start LA at the time. I guess I'd done some filming with Phil Collin at Def Leppard at his house, and he had done a thing at my house. So I said, okay. And it went so well that when it was time to do our second one, everyone wanted to come. So I did one the day before for a new group of 12. And that was Colonel Tim Cole and all these other amazing, Seth Mosley, 3-time Grammy winner, 27 at the time. He already had like 15 number one songs. And again, I don't want to make it sound like it's all entertainers and sports people. I mean, we had entrepreneurs, doctors, professionals. And then they all said, well, we should combine this really, like, because I was going to keep them separate because I promised only 12. They're like, no, I'd like to be in there
I want
with
to be in that
Ron.
group.
Yeah. And so we combined it. I have over 100 members now. And we meet 6 times a year in Dallas. I do a couple in LA. When I say 6 times, most of those are 2 days. The one you came to is a 1 day. 2 days are where people will fly in. I have people all over the country. And then we do a monthly masterclass call where I have had Brian Tracy and Martha Hansen and Layla Delia and all these amazing people do the master classes, but we have tax attorneys and we have people talking about health and fitness and communication in every modality. And then also have a monthly marketing call, and we'll pick a topic, and then all this gets recorded. It goes in a membership site, and then we have a Facebook group, and it's very robust and just amazing people. I was talking to Tom Burns, who's raised over 700 million, but he's a doctor for the Olympic ski team. He's going to call in from China when
Wow.
he's with the Olympic team in China right now, and he's going to call in Friday or Saturday for memory and marketing. And they're just amazing people. And Chris Gronkowski, he's probably spoken the last 7 of mine. And Chris is a good friend. His partner's Mark Cuban, and he was on Shark Tank, and he's built an incredible company.
I have one of his drinks right here, the ice shaker
They're the
from
best.
Lifetime. There you
Yeah,
go.
they are the
I
best.
think what's really great about your inner circle is that it's you found this corner in the market to where if you join, you get access to these people who have done such amazing things at such an intimate level. You see them speaking at these bigger events. You're not really going to get to sit down and have a conversation with them or ask them questions. Versus in your inner circle, you're able to do that because the proximity is right there.
It's crazy. I had Brian Tracy. He's been on multiple times, but we'll have him on a Zoom, and so it's just my group. And he had an hour, and he took 2, and he's just talking. You're so right. It's like the access to this 30 or 50 people at a time. Phil Collin of Def Leppard joined us twice. Phil actually sent me a box of signed books for my members, and so back 20 years ago, they'd sold over 100 million albums. If
That's
anybody ever
insane.
say, pour some sugar on me. Phil has now, we've gone back, backstage at least a dozen times in Dallas and LA. And no, just really amazing people. And again, philosophically, I just made the decision a while back. I'd rather have a culture than try and create some big business thing that didn't have loyalty necessarily, didn't have I just decided what I wanted more. I wanted a community with amazing people. And yes, we taught marketing. Yes, we taught every type of.
Every single element of life, you guys touch on it in just that one day event. Health, wellness, spiritual well being, mindset, the different personality types, AI, marketing, taxes, investing. I
That's
can't believe you fit that all into one day to start off with. It's what you've built is in essence of the word a mastermind, to
yes.
where a bunch of people who are great at what they do are coming together and creating this melting pot of ideas to support each other and to grow. I know for a long time it was very exclusive. You had to apply to get in. How can people join today?
It's still the same. I mean, I still have an application process, and then I actually jump on a call with them. So there is no way just to go sign up, but they can
I
go
love it.
site and kylewilson.com, and there is mastermind. I think it's inner circle or mastermind. Click it. It tells all about the group. There is an application. I'll jump on a call with them. And because, and I do that with my books too. I always have to get on a call with it because I am just making sure they're a good fit for us, and almost also that I'm a good fit for them. They might
Right.
want something different than what I'm doing. And yeah, but if they mention you at all, that you know they'll be accepted. They'll be okay. But I still want to get on a call with them.
We still got to get on a call. What would you say are some characteristics of the people that you accept into your group? What are you looking for? Or I guess more importantly, what are you not looking for?
Yeah, so I'll answer both. You know what excites me is when it can really help them. Like I love to meet a student that's so excited about all the people they're going to meet, all the things they want to learn. That, I'm not saying I do many scholarships, but when I do, it's when I see people that are just want to learn and they want to grow, and we're a great fit for them. What I don't want is someone overly transactional. If they're going to come in just to try and make sales. But I will say our culture is so strong. Everyone I've ever kind of worried about a little bit has just behaved amazingly. And I think it's just, we have Colonel Tim Cole when you're Colonel of Marines. ran a presidential inauguration, ran the biggest ever. He's our greeter outside, greeting people, helping them park their car. We have a Navy SEAL that, used to work for me at Jim Rohn International that's part of the group. And so I think we have such an amazing culture that people come in and they really honor they honor everyone in the group. So yeah, so I think with that in mind, it's not like anyone has to have a particular level of success. I think we're very intimidating for a lot of people, and that's the biggest mistake I've made probably is talking about all the celebrity authorities in the group. But we have a variety of people, a lot of solopreneurs. So it's philosophy, honestly, and how people endear themselves to me is they say Jim Rohn changed my life, and I'm like, okay.
Welcome to the
Really?
club. Well, I love it. I think that I want to share a bit of the culture that you've built within your group through the book that you've written. Could you talk to us a little bit more about the book you're giving away?
Yeah, the most recent book is called Lessons from Thought Leaders, and we got Brian Tracy, Phil Collin of Def Leppard, Les Brown, everyone knows Les, Chris Gronkowski, Tom Ziegler, Dennis Waitley, Kevin Eastman, NBA championship coach. So many Mitzi Purdue, Simon Bailey. So that book, it took us almost 2 years to do this book, but it's each one of them telling it's lessons from thought leaders, telling some of their best lessons. Also, it's a 3-part: their story, their thought leader lessons, and then a Q&A. And we donate 100% of the launch profits to an amazing charity, chairthehope.org, which takes wheelchairs to third world countries. And I'm really proud of the book. It's 320 pages. I'd love to give everyone the digital copy. They also get Success Habits of Super Achievers that has Darren Hardy and, John Assaraf.
That's a great one. That is
Yes.
a great one. Yep, I have that one.
And then, Passionistas. I mean, they get them all. Yes.
There you go. What I like about this so far is it's not just them telling their story with no direction. You've done a really good job at really pulling the lessons and the key takeaways to where each person has their own chapter, but it really does feel like you get to know them for who they are and what they've been through.
Yes.
It's not surface level whatsoever.
No, I have the best partner on this, Dakar Site. She's the writing coach, the editor. We've done 16 books together. This is her full-time gig. She only works with our authors. And so it's a 3 to 4 draft process. We really take people through. It's in depth. And then we do 8 marketing calls around it where I teach them how to market, how to go tell their story. And then we have celebrity authorities. We hit an amazing amount of number ones in this book, not just bestseller, but number ones internationally. And yeah, so it's an incredible process. And so I have an application on that as well on my website. Our next books I'm working on now is called Becoming Your Best Self: Lessons on Resilience. So it's a book we're really excited to start on.
I'm super hyped. How can people get that book that you have in your hand right now?
The best way is to send me an email. Honestly, I could send them to my website, but I'd rather hear their story. So if they'll send an email to me at kyle@kylewilson.com, say, send the book, heard you on Natalie's podcast. But listen, if Jim Rohn's changed your life, or if Natalie's impacted your life, or anything you want to tell me about your business and what you do, I'd love to hear it. And I'll send you all the books, plus some interviews, some really cool resources. We kind of over deliver.
He over delivers. We had lunch one time and you gave me a stack of books I couldn't even carry.
I love giving away books. It really is. I've given away thousands and thousands of books.
I love it. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for sharing so much value on this call. We talked about the wheel, we talked about the different eras of marketing, the different principles. Thank you so much. Is there any one last lesson or key takeaway that you want to share with people before we hop off?
Well, first of all, it's been my honor, and I really appreciate you. I remember the first time we met on a Zoom call, and so it's been great interacting with you and having you speak. Now it's going to be the second time, and also giving me a one-on-one AI lesson, which was so valuable.
We're just getting started.
Yeah, and I follow you on social, and yeah, it's always great watching your lessons. I think I always say you learn by doing, so just get started. It's everyone. There's some things I always talk about. Everyone starts at zero. So whoever we're admiring at one time was at zero. At one time, I had no list. I'd never done anything, had never done a book. We all start at zero. So you just got to get started, and then one step at a time. And there is no rush. There's no rush. It's
There's no
just.
rush. There's just a destination. You'll get there when you get there.
And lastly, be authentically you. You're going to win if you're authentically you, because then you're going to attract all the right people.
I love it. Well, if you're watching this video right now, we're filming this on February 12th. Kyle's having his memory and marketing mastermind on February 1st and the 22nd. I'll go ahead and put the link below in the chat. And also, if there are some huge takeaways that you took from this, I'll also include the show notes below. Just download that. It's free. Access it, copy, save it, start implementing. Don't make any more excuses. Take your time. Get to your destination. We're all on this journey together. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We'll see y'all later. Bye.